Well, folks, last night was night 2 of the Republican National Convention. It was an incredible show. We're going to get to all that news, plus updates on the assassination attempt against Donald Trump. The Secret Service's failures could not be more glaring. I mean, it's really incredible. We'll get to that in a moment. First, one thing is clear in this election. The fight for America's core values is more important than ever. The Daily Wire is on the front lines of that fight. We can't win without you. Join us right now while we're offering 47% off annual memberships. Go to dailywire.com. Use promo code FIGHT at checkout to get started and hang out with us all the time. Because honestly, we're going to get better commentary, opinion, and fact-based coverage. Okay, so last night was, again, night 2 of the RNC. And it was a unity night. Donald Trump promised a unity convention. Among Republicans, the unity is obviously materializing. And it's materializing because, let's be frank about this, Donald Trump, for all those who have sort of a Marxist materialist view of history in which figures don't matter, that is clearly not true. And Donald Trump is proof positive that that is not true, that individual figures actually do shape history. There's this whole materialist Marxist view that sort of goes back to Hegel, actually predating Marx, that suggests that we sort of ride the eddies of history, that history is a series of impersonal forces, and that individual figures don't matter, that if there were no Churchill, there would have been somebody kind of like Churchill who would have performed the same function. If there were no Hitler, there would have been somebody like Hitler who would have performed that same function. You know, and again, it goes for good or for ill. Well, there's a countervailing view, which is what's been sort of derisively termed the great man view of history, which is the idea that individuals matter in history. Donald Trump is an individual who matters in history, whether you like him or whether you hate him. That is just a reality. And when you see the Republican Party come together around Donald Trump at this point, it's something absolutely unique. Republicans came together around other candidates. They've come together, at every convention around Mitt Romney or John McCain. But the level of enthusiasm for Donald Trump on a personal level, the level of adoration, obviously, in the hall for Donald Trump, the ability that Donald Trump has to cobble together a coalition that really is non-ideological. That's the thing about Trump. Trump is not an ideological figure. And because Trump is not an ideological figure, he has not formed an ideological party. Now, that doesn't mean that the actual policies that come out of his administration won't be ideological. Right? His first term was very ideological. It was a fairly conservative administration, ideologically speaking, more conservative than George W. Bush's administration, ideologically speaking, at least when it came to, say, the courts or when it came to foreign policy. However, when it comes to his coalition is entirely non-ideological. And that's why, I do have some disagreements with some people, even people, who I work with at Daily Wire, about what the RNC is for. So I've heard a lot of complaints. And again, I agree with them on a moral level. Why are some of these people speaking? Like, they have nothing to do with conservatism. They're not spokespeople for conservatism. But I don't think that's what the RNC is for. The RNC is a showcase. It's a permission structure for people to join the tent. And again, what politics is all about is coalitions. It's about coalition building. It's about how many people can you give permission to join your side against the other side. What Donald Trump has built is an anti-left coalition. He's built a massive anti-left coalition. And as the left has gone off the rails, again, there's a reactivity to American politics because Trump is who Trump is. The left went completely off the rails. And because they went completely off the rails, they forced everybody in the middle to Donald Trump's side. This is what happened, for example, with Elon Musk. This is what happened to a certain extent with me. I mean, the fact is that I was not a voter for Donald Trump in 2016. I didn't vote for either candidate in 2016 because, frankly, I didn't like either candidate in 2016. Then the left went completely off the rails, and Donald Trump gave me more conservative policy than I thought I was going to get. And I voted for him in 2020. And then the left went even further off the rails. And now I'm a donor to President Trump. And that is a good example. J.D. Vance, who is the now vice presidential candidate that Donald Trump picked, same sort of thing. J.D. was more strenuously anti-Trump than I was in 2016. By 2020, he was a Trump backer. By 2024, he's his vice presidential candidate. And again, that is because Trump has a unique capacity as a non-ideological, larger-than-life figure to hold together coalitions that include people who are both pro-life and pro-choice, people who are pro-gay marriage and anti-gay marriage. He's able to cobble together a coalition between union leaders and people who think that right to work is a top priority. It's a non-ideological coalition. That's what the RNC is about. Well, whether you're building a coalition or building a company, you need the best people. And whether you're looking to hire somebody who actually understands basic economics or just needs staff that won't spend all day tweeting about the latest woke crusade, ZipRecruiter can help you. Right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. ZipRecruiter finds qualified candidates fast. It doesn't just cast a wide net and hope for the best. ZipRecruiter's cutting-edge technology actively seeks candidates with the skills and experience you need. Once you've reviewed your list of qualified candidates, you can invite your top choices to apply. This streamlined process encourages them to apply sooner, allowing you to fill that role faster. Lots of seasonal businesses are hiring up right now. Gear up for summer with ZipRecruiter's high-speed hiring tools. See why 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the very first day. Just go to this exclusive web address right now to try ZipRecruiter for free. ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. You do need the best people staffing at your company. ZipRecruiter can help. They'll help you fast. They'll get you the best people. ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. ZipRecruiter is indeed the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. People who are looking to the RNC platform and criticizing the RNC platform understand the RNC platform is not an actual policy statement that matters. It isn't. I'm sorry, it isn't. That's not what the RNC is for anymore. There may have been a time when the RNC platform matters. There may have been a time when there was some sort of RNC that actually, the RNC is not a tool for ideology any longer. It is not where you look to determine what Republicans or conservatives think. It is merely a tool for victory. And particularly, it's a tool for victory for Donald Trump in this election cycle. And so what you're seeing is an extraordinarily large tent, a tent that's largely unsupportable ideologically in the sense that the actual tent poles are so far apart that in any normal circumstance, they would collapse in on themselves. But because Donald Trump is at the center of that tent, and he's an extraordinarily large and powerful supporting and buttressing force in the center of that tent can hold. And that's what you're seeing at the Republican National Convention right now. That, of course, has only been exacerbated by the attempted assassination of President Trump on Saturday. And we're finding out new details on this now. And I got to tell you, the Secret Service is just, it's beyond insane that anyone is still working at the Secret Service after this in a position of leadership. Totally crazy. So there's a graphic that somebody created that is astonishing. Now, I've said before that God's hand is on Trump. I don't know why. I'm not God. I can't reason that out for you. For whatever reason, no matter what side you're on, I don't know how you look at this assassination attempt on Trump and you don't see God's hand in the picture. I think that maybe it's because God wants America saved. And I don't mean that in terms of God wants Trump to live because he must be president. I mean that if Donald Trump had been assassinated, it may have been the end of America. Not because we're going to immediately pick up guns and go to civil war, but because the lack of trust in our civic institutions is so unbelievably high that if Donald Trump had been killed, and we now learn what we have learned about the Secret Service and their complete fail at every possible level, a Secret Service that works for a White House that is currently using the DOJ to target Donald Trump. The levels of trust are so low, I'm not sure that the country could have withstood that if Trump had been killed on the stage on Saturday. And he came within literally centimeters of being murdered on the stage, his head being turned to mist in front of a national televised audience. And so when God spared Donald Trump, I think God was really in some ways trying to spare America. Again, I can't read God's mind. I'm not God. But, as a religious person, I don't see how you can't attribute God in history to this incident. And when you watch this video, maybe you don't believe that the Red Sea was split. Maybe you don't believe that God spoke on top of a mountain. Okay, but if you don't see something at work here other than pure random chance, I kind of feel bad for you, frankly. So it's astonishing. This is a video from, somebody put it, it's a graphic of Trump speaking, and it's juxtaposed with a top-down view, like a bird's eye view of Trump's head. Because at the very last second here, Trump turns his head to look at the screen. And if he doesn't turn his head at the last second here, he's dead. So you see at the outset of this video is the shot line. The shot line would have gone, presumably, through his right cheek, and it would have blown out the back of his head. Like that's what the original shot line would have done here. And look at this video. It's just astonishing.
Take a look what happened.
He's speaking. That shot line is still going through his head. He turns at the last second. Bullet 1, right past his cheek. Bullet 2, through his ear. Bullet 3 misses him completely because he moves from bullets 1 and bullets 2. Just astonishing. And he turns his head a split second before the bullets come. That's how close they came. And now we have new details. How bad was the Secret Service's failing here? Astonishingly bad. Unthinkably bad. Here is CNN's John Miller revealing more details.
They know that he went to his employer at the nursing home where he works as a dietary specialist before this and said, I need Saturday off. I have something important to do. We also understand that when he got to the fairgrounds where this rally was being held for Donald Trump, The first thing that puts him on the radar of security people is near the magnetometer area where they're screening people in. He's carrying in his hand a rangefinder. It's a device that looks like a small pair of binoculars, but it's used by shooters to measure the distance when they're setting up a long-distance shot. The last piece is the search of the car. As we reported last night, 2 remote-controlled IEDs, remote-controlled bombs in the car. The remote control for those devices found on his person on the roof, according to sources. 3 fully loaded magazines with nearly 100 rounds, a bulletproof vest.
I mean, just amazing. Just amazing. Okay, and then we find out that according to the Wall Street Journal, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle addressed one of the central mysteries in the attempted assassination of former President Trump: how the shooter was able to climb onto the top of a nearby building and have a clear sight line to Trump without being stopped. Okay, so what happened? According to the Secret Service head, Cheadle, quote, "That building in particular has a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there that we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof." She added the decision was made to secure the building from inside. What the actual, wait, a sloped roof? These are members of the Secret Service, a sloped roof. First of all, the roof was plenty not sloped enough for the actual shooter to be on the roof, pointing a gun and shooting at the president of the United States. I could navigate that sloped roof. My kids could navigate that sloped roof. But what, they were afraid of some sort of OSHA violation? If the Secret Service was up top protecting the roof? A sloped roof? Are you kidding me? So the police snipers were actually inside the same building on which the shooter was lying, according to the Washington Post. Apparently, local PD were inside the building where a gunman had positioned himself on the roof to shoot at the former president. From inside the Agra International building, they spotted a man acting furtively, walking back and forth around the building with some gear, and radioed a Secret Service command post to alert them. Again, this is unthinkably bad. There is no failure that in our lifetime that is nearly as bad as this. It's way worse than Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald, that location should have been secure, but that was driving a car through an open-air car through a downtown area of Dallas. This is a remote area of Butler, Pennsylvania, population 13,000. With one building in sight, you had one job, and you're telling me that a sloped roof prevented you from getting this guy? And he came in with a scope, and you didn't stop him? And everybody knew who he was? And you had him in the sniper sights before, and you waited for him to take the shot because you have a rule that until he takes the shot, you wouldn't want to kill an innocent person with a telescope on a roof that is too sloped for your people to be on? That's the story? That's the story here? Well, folks, it's Prime Week, but instead of giving your money to Jeff Bezos, you should go to GoodRanchers.com. Shop their Prime deals on American meats. You don't want to miss these savings on America's best meat delivered right to your door. For 1 week only, Good Ranchers is offering you the chance to save up to $150 when you subscribe. Imagine having top quality 100% American beef, chicken, pork, and wild-caught seafood delivered right to your door at an affordable price. Good Ranchers sources all their meat from local U.S. farms without antibiotics or added hormones. Every purchase supports American farmers. Good Ranchers donates a portion of every order to Paralyzed Veterans of America. Money well spent. If you value local, trustworthy, high-quality food, you need to join the Good Ranchers family. Go to GoodRanchers.com, subscribe to any box to unlock their Prime Week savings. But hurry, this offer is only available this week. Remember, that's GoodRanchers.com, no code needed. Just subscribe to unlock up to $150 in savings. GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered. I know their steak is really good because they made me a kosher steak. It's the one kosher steak they ever made. It was awesome stuff. So go check them out right now. America's best meat, GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered. And again, no code necessary. Subscribe and unlock up to $150 in savings. One of the things that makes these failures so astonishing is that there was already heightened scrutiny on Trump with regard to a possible assassination attempt. We're now learning from the Wall Street Journal that the Biden administration in recent weeks determined there was an increased threat from Iran against former President Donald Trump that was serious enough to prompt additional security measures for the former president, a national security official said on Tuesday. Apparently, that had nothing to do with the attempted assassination of the former president in Pennsylvania on Saturday. But that shows you two things. Number one, you're constantly hearing about foreign countries. Which candidate do they prefer? Iran wants to kill Donald Trump. Which candidate do you think Iran prefers? Which candidate do you think they prefer? Obviously, they prefer Joe Biden. Clearly and obviously, as well they should, because Joe Biden has been soft on the Iranians his entire administration. He's entirely reshifted the power structure of the Middle East because he's pathetic with regard to the Iranians. It's just unbelievable. But the other issue here is just the Secret Service one. If you upped your protection, how did a shooter get 3 shots off that came within inches of killing the former president of the United States after you upped the security? That's totally insane. It's totally crazy. What's even more insane, of course, is that the Secret Service director, a woman named Kimberly Cheadle, as we mentioned, she actually said that the buck stops with her, but she's not going to resign.
What was your reaction when you saw the events unfold on Saturday?
Shock, and then concern, obviously, for the former president. This is an event that should have never happened.
Who is most responsible for this happening?
What I would say is that the Secret Service is responsible for the protection of the former president.
So the buck stops with you?
The buck stops with me. I am the director of the Secret Service. It was unacceptable, and it's something that shouldn't happen again.
The president and Homeland Security Secretary said today they had 100% confidence in you, but there are some members of Congress calling on you to resign.
I appreciate the Secretary's comments, and we're going to continue to be transparent and communicate with people.
You plan to stay on, absolutely.
I do plan to stay on.
What the hell? What the hell? You have to be transparent and honest. They're not being transparent. They're not being honest. And she's going to stay on because in the new world, no one loses their job for a failure. No one. This, by the way, is a point that Donald Trump made during that debate. It was overshadowed, obviously, by the fact that Joe Biden is totally senile. But in the debate, he said, you don't fire anybody. How come after Afghanistan, no one gets fired? How? How is that possible? And the answer is no one gets fired in DEI land. You don't get fired over here. She's one of the first females in a position of power at the Secret Service. We can't fire. She literally presided over the greatest Secret Service failure since Ronald Reagan was shot in the 80s. And she's keeping her job? How? How is that even remotely possible? You had one job, literally one. Well, that and policing counterfeiting. One job. That's it. Unreal. Absolutely unreal. Well, Donald Trump Jr., the son of the president, obviously he has a lot of reasons to be angry at the Secret Service as well as, for example, the FBI. The FBI is doing an investigation. And Don Jr. says, why would I trust the FBI? The FBI is the same organization that attempted to essentially launder the so-called Steele dossier into public view about my father. Why would I trust them? And herein lies the problem. The institutions have become so perverted. They become such repositories of failure and uselessness. Why would you trust them just on a competence level to do the right thing? Forget about the sort of conspiracy theories that the Secret Service was in on it or something. Just on a competence level, why would you trust them?
Do you have confidence in the FBI to get to the bottom of this?
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
I mean, do you blame Don Jr. there? I don't. Anyway, all of this was prelude to night 2 of the RNC. So night 2 of the RNC happens. Donald Trump again makes his big entry. He still has the bandage on his ear because, of course, he got shot in the ear on Saturday. As we'll see, there are a lot of people on the left who are very upset with the bandage on the ear. They got to find something to be upset about. But here was President Trump's entry once again, extraordinarily raucous, very warm. He's unified the party like nobody in my lifetime.
President Donald J. Trump.
He walks out again. Crowd goes berserk. Again, as well they should. He's a historic figure, no matter what you think of him. Okay, so what was the reaction of the left-wing media to Donald Trump's entry? Well, Melber over on MSNBC decided that the major issue here is that he has a bandage on his ear because he got shot in the ear. Here's Melber doing what the left media do.
A placard for delegates to fill in, an image for political mobilization, a spectacle for this candidate who we know is, by his own admission, obsessed with assorted spectacles. These aren't normal times. This is not a normal convention. Whether that makes it abnormal in a way that is either special or abnormal in a way that is bad is what voters will assess, because many are watching over the course of these nights, along with you and our team here. There is a political quest here to mine and use Donald Trump's injury, and whether his allies and Republicans or the candidate himself do that in a way that overextends their credibility will be decided by the voters.
Oh, they're overextending. You see, when someone tries to shoot the president in the head, they're overextending to point out that Donald Trump was almost shot in the head. It's an overextension. good luck with this particular argument. So on to the actual content of the RNC. So for me, there are a lot of politicians who spoke. Again, a wide variety of politicians. We'll get into those political speeches. Some were better than others. But the people who were really most effective were the normal Americans who got up and talked about life under Joe Biden. It was very much of a piece with our series, Divided States of America, which is focused in on things like immigration and fentanyl and crime. Well, there was a woman named Ann Funder who came out and talked about the death of her 15-year-old son to fentanyl. If you want to know kind of everything you need to know about Joe Biden's open border, about fentanyl traffic in the United States, again, check out our series, Divided States of Biden, over at Daily Wire Plus and become a subscriber, which you should do anyway to learn more about this. Here is Ann Funder. Again, hard not to be moved when you hear a mom talking about the death of her son from fentanyl poisoning. And it is fentanyl poisoning. Here we go.
We had family dinners and barbecues at the beach. And like most teenagers, Weston wanted to fit in. And in a moment of peer pressure, he tried something that someone gave to him, and it took my baby's life. This was not an overdose. It was a poisoning. His whole future, everything we ever wanted for him was ripped away in an instant. And Joe Biden does nothing. I hold Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the borders are, what a joke, and Gavin Newsom and every Democrat who supports open borders responsible for the death of my son.
Powerful stuff, and I'm not sure exactly how Joe Biden rebuts that, considering his open borders policy. We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, getting in credit card debt is really easy, but getting out, well, system is set up so it's very hard to get out of debt. If you're struggling with credit cards, personal loans, collections, or medical bills, you need to check out PDS Debt. PDS provides a service to match you with debt solutions tailored to your financial situation. If you're making payments every month on your debt and your balances aren't going down, PDS has solutions for you. Everyone with 10 grand or more in eligible debt qualifies. There's no minimum credit score required. Bad and fair credit is accepted. You know, the reality is that, again, there are a lot of people who get into debt. Sometimes not your fault. And very often it's very hard to get out. Once you're in credit card debt, you can be absolutely destroyed by it. Well, PDS Debt can help you out because PDS will help you tailor specific solutions to your specific problems to help you become debt-free. Save more while paying off your debt in a fraction of the time. Stop waiting, start saving. Get a free debt analysis right now at pdsdebt.com/Ben. It only takes 30 seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/Ben today. pdsdebt.com/Ben. Go check them out right now. pdsdebt.com/Ben to get started. It only takes 30 seconds to get evaluated. And again, these issues are incredibly real. Fentanyl is now the leading cause of death for young Americans in terms of sort of medical cause of death at this point. Extraordinary numbers of young Americans dying of fentanyl poisoning. And it is poisoning because we explained in the documentary, a grain of fentanyl is enough to kill you. And it's being laced into pretty much every illegal drug that's out there. Meanwhile, another sort of everyday American named Madeline Brame, she talked about the murder of her retired veteran son.
My son, Sergeant Hassan Korea, an Afghanistan War retired veteran. He received enemy fire from the Taliban, only to be murdered with a knife on the streets of New York City. The 4 assailants responsible for his death initially were facing justice, but that changed when District Attorney Alvin Bragg was elected. Suddenly, 2 of the homicidal maniacs responsible for my son's death had their gang assault and murder charges completely dismissed.
Again, those sorts of stories are going to be very effective for independents and moderates in this particular race. Then, of course, there is the cavalcade of various Republican figures, many of whom were sort of up for the VP nod, and then obviously J.D. Vance was picked. One of those people is Representative Elise Stefani from New York, who's taken a leading role in American minds thanks to her grilling of university presidents. Here she was going off on why President Trump is going to win.
President Trump will once again deliver the most secure border in our nation's history and unleash the American economy. And he will bring peace through strength as Commander-in-Chief, standing with our allies and causing our enemies to fear us. President Trump has done it before, and he will do it again. This November, We are counting on you, we the people, to save America by electing President Donald J. Trump. It is clear for the whole world to see nothing, absolutely nothing will stop President Trump from standing and fighting for our great country.
Okay, perhaps the best speech of the night was actually Vivek Ramaswamy. So Vivek, who ran a shock campaign, obviously. He came from literally nowhere to become a national figure in an extraordinarily short period of time. Vivek is super bright. Here is Vivek's speech at the RNC.
What does it mean to be a Republican in the year 2024? What does it mean to be an American in the year 2024? It means we believe in the ideals of 1776. It means we believe in merit, that you get ahead in this country, not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character and your contributions.
Now, Vivek actually did a speech not all that long ago at the National Conservative Convention in which he discussed what he called national libertarianism, as opposed to sort of national protectionism, which was a much more free market-oriented version of some of what J.D. Vance talks about. It's a fascinating speech, and it's well worth the read, for sure. Again, this is a diverse party, and that diversity was on display last night. Nikki Haley was sort of the big moment of the night. She, of course, ran the longest campaign against President Trump in the primary. She was the most critical of President Trump in the primary. She offered her endorsement on the stage. And again, this is a big thing. It's not a small thing. There are a lot of people in the Republican Party who are saying, well, I'm going to hold out because if Nikki's holding out, then I'm going to hold out too. But the reality is that Nikki Haley was in Donald Trump's cabinet. Nikki Haley knows better than anyone that Donald Trump is going to do a much better job as president of the United States than Joe Biden. And politics is a game of egos. In politics, feathers get ruffled. Egos get bruised. Nikki Haley coming out and doing the right thing and endorsing Donald Trump is a big moment for Nikki Haley, and it is very good for the Republican Party. Here's the former governor of South Carolina and UN ambassador.
President Trump asked me to speak to this convention in the name of unity. It was a gracious invitation, and I was happy to accept. I'll start by making one thing perfectly clear. Donald Trump has my strong endorsement, period. I'm here tonight because we have a country to save. And a unified Republican Party is essential for saving her.
And Trump's reaction, which is magnanimous there, again, it speaks to the fact that he does actually want to unify the party. There are a lot of former rivals who came out of the woodwork to speak about President Trump last night. Ted Cruz, of course, was his chief rival in 2016. Here was Senator Cruz, who, of course, has become a very, very strong Trump ally in the years since 2016.
Today, as a result of Joe Biden's presidency, your family is less safe. Your children are less safe. The country is less safe. But here's the good news. We can fix it. And when Donald Trump is president, we will fix it.
Well, all these folks flew into the RNC. I'll tell you what they could have used. They could have used some balance of nature, because the reality is when you're flying around the country for work and you're constantly on the go, you have to keep your health at your very best. Listen, when I'm traveling around, I exercise, I try to get enough sleep, I try to eat well. But here's the thing. I need balance of nature. Balance of nature fits right into my day-to-day. Imagine trying to eat 31 different fruits and vegetables every day. That sounds miserable and time-consuming. With balance of nature fruits and veggies, there's never been a more convenient dietary supplement to ensure you get a wide variety of fruits and veggies every day with 31 different whole fruit and vegetable ingredients. Balance of Nature takes fruits and veggies, they freeze-dry them, they turn them into a powder, and then they put them into a capsule. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day, and your body knows what to do with them. They're kosher, which is how I can take them in the smoothies. They keep me going strong. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Shapiro for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Shapiro. I've been using Balance of Nature, so has our staff. Everybody is very happy with the results. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Shapiro. Get 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Governor Ron DeSantis, of course, was the person who probably had the strongest shot of beating Trump in the primaries very early on. Obviously, he made the right decision to drop out of the race when he didn't win Iowa and did poorly in New Hampshire. He's still the most successful governor in America down in my home state of Florida. Again, he was the person I had picked in the primaries above President Trump if he'd made it that far in the primaries. He, of course, endorsed Trump very early as soon as he dropped out of the race. He spoke last night. He had probably the line of the night talking about how we need somebody who's not a weekend at Bernie's president.
As a citizen, as a husband, and as a father, I am alarmed that the current President of the United States lacks the capability to discharge the duties of his office. Our enemies do not confine their designs to between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. We need a commander-in-chief who can lead 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. America cannot afford 4 more years of a weekend at Bernie's presidency.
That, of course, is obviously true. And of course, there were some other jokes that were told about the fact that Joe Biden is no longer sentient. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is the former press secretary for President Trump and now is the governor of Arkansas, she joked about who exactly is the president of the United States.
I got the chance to take my 4-year-old son, Huck, to bring your kid to work day. Much like Jill now drags Joe to bring your husband to work day.
It's a good line, and it ain't wrong. It's kind of true. Other highlights of the evening, Senator Tom Cotton, again from Arkansas, he went off on immigration. Of course, this may be the single platform in the Republican Party plank that everybody agrees on is a stronger position on immigration. The party's all over the damn place on a wide variety of issues, but on immigration, there is relative policy unity.
After Joe Biden and the border czar, Kamala Harris, reversed President Trump's immigration policies and welcomed a third world invasion, I traveled to our border. What did I see? The body of a migrant drowned in the Rio Grande. Human traffickers on the southern bank taunting the Border Patrol. Migrants huddled under a bridge. I asked them why they came. None said persecution. Most said for a job. A few admitted because they could get in. Another answered with one simple word: Biden.
Again, on immigration, Joe Biden continues to be extraordinarily vulnerable. Again, underscoring all of the Republican unity is the fact that Joe Biden has been such an awful president. He's been so terrible. And so Republicans are coalescing in extraordinary fashion. Dr. Ben Carson, who is, of course, the head of Housing and Urban Development under Donald Trump, he spoke last night as well. Again, it was a cavalcade, a lot of speakers last night.
Let me tell you the weapons that they used. First, they tried to ruin his reputation, and he's more popular now than ever. And then they tried to bankrupt him, and he's got more money now than he had before. And then they tried to put him in prison, and he's freer and has made other people free with him. And then last weekend they tried to kill him, and there he is over there alive and well.
Now, of course, the quibble here is it's not the same they. I mean, they're some of these theys are actual forces in the government, like the DOJ, right? Some of these theys are the Democratic Party trying to twice impeach him. We still don't know, there's no evidence the shooter was working for the Democratic Party, God forbid, or that he was working for the White House, God forbid, or anything like that. But the generalized point stands, which is Donald Trump has had everything, including bullets thrown at him, and he is still standing. That, of course, is a point made by Lara Trump, the daughter-in-law of the president and current head of the RNC. She said, this president does not back down. That certainly is true.
I have seen this man dragged through hell and back. In and out of courtrooms, indictments, impeachments, mugshots, and even an assassination attempt. And yet, he has never backed down.
Marco Rubio was one of the keynoters of the night. Senator Rubio from Florida. He is making the case, again, for more populist conservatism. That, of course, is sort of the rhetorical case that the Trump campaign has made throughout. Presumably, we're going to get a lot of that tonight from Senator J.D. Vance, now the vice presidential nominee. Tucker Carlson is also speaking tonight. He presumably will make much the same case. Here is Senator Rubio making some of that case last night.
The last few days remind us that the life of every living thing and the breath of all mankind is in the hands of God. We were brought to the precipice of the abyss, and by the hand of God, reminded of what truly matters in our lives and in our country. This thing we do called politics, it matters. It's not unimportant. But it is our people who must always matter the most in everything we do.
And well, coming up, obviously, Joe Biden is in serious trouble. And folks, if you want all the updates on this, not only that, if you want to be part of the fight, then you really do need to show up over at Daily Wire and subscribe. It's your subscriptions that allow us to continue to thrive, continue to cover politics, continue to bring you the actual principles that are the only antidote to the left's disastrous agenda. Those principles are the bedrock values that will propel Donald Trump back to the White House in November. And let's be clear, obviously, I believe this. I've donated money to the man, held fundraisers for him. Donald Trump needs to be the next president of the United States. At the Daily Wire, we're not just kind of pontificating about conservative values. We are fighting for them every single day. And now we need your help, obviously, for a very limited time. We are offering our special presidential deal, 47% off your annual membership. Again, that is 47% off. And yes, that number is intentional. With this membership, you get it all. Uncensored shows, ad-free content, podcasts that actually make you smarter, and news that is not filtered through the left's propaganda machine. So here's what you need to do. Go to dailywire.com right now. Use code FIGHT at checkout to get your 47% discount. Your support isn't just appreciated, it's crucial. Once again, go to dailywire.com, use code FIGHT at checkout, and let's get to work. Okay, meanwhile, well, now on the other side of the aisle, Joe Biden continues to collapse in on himself like a dying star. I mean, it is astonishing. So apparently, he did a call on Saturday night with a bunch of Democratic representatives and Democratic politicians, and he just broke down. He just started babbling nonsensically. According to Puck, quote, the campaign did not dispute this next part about Crow and his Bronze Star. So there's a representative named Jason Crow of Minnesota. He served in the Army's 82nd Airborne Division, and he led a platoon of paratroopers during the invasion of Iraq and earned the Bronze Star for his combat actions during the invasion. He also served 2 additional tours in Afghanistan. He had the temerity to ask Joe Biden about losing the race, and Joe Biden apparently started yelling at him. He said, first of all, I think you're dead wrong on national security. Apparently, he said, at times garbling his words. This is according to people on the call. You saw what happened recently in terms of the meeting we had with NATO. I put NATO together. Name me a foreign leader who thinks I'm not the most effective leader in the world on foreign policy. Tell me who the hell that is. Tell me who put NATO back together. Tell me who enlarged NATO. Tell me who did the Pacific Basin. Tell me who did something you've never done with your Bronze Star like my son. I'm proud of your leadership, but guess what? What's happening? We've got Korea and Japan working together. I put AUKUS together anyway. Things are in chaos. I'm bringing some order to it. And again, find me a world leader who's an ally of ours who doesn't think I'm the most respected person they've ever. And Crow said, it's not breaking through to our voters. Well, yes, it is not breaking through to the voters. And not only that, everybody is freaking out. So according to the New York Times, resurgent Trump has Democrats in swing districts despondent. Adam Frisch, a Democrat trying to flip a Republican House seat in Colorado, was frustrated enough that calls for President Biden to step aside, including his own, were having no impact on the president. Then reports came Tuesday that leaders of the DNC were moving to confirm Biden as his party's presidential nominee by the end of July, and his anger boiled over. It's so frustrating to Democratic voters, to donors, to the double haters who don't like Biden or Trump. This is why people hate politics. It looks like the books are being cooked. And that's right. They're accelerating the virtual roll call vote, having it this month in order to sort of get past the final point. And again, you can see why they're doing this. If you're Joe Biden's campaign, what you're figuring is, back in 2016, Donald Trump, very unpopular with large swaths of the Republican Party, consolidates the party, wins. Once it's done, and everybody sort of comes home. And that's what Biden is figuring. He's figuring, I'm only losing by 3-4 points nationally. I'm losing by 3, 2, 5 points in the swing states. Maybe if everybody comes home and stops, then maybe I can put this thing back together. And so they're trying to accelerate the confirmation. The problem is that they're doing this in the middle of a news cycle and in the middle of a reality in which Joe Biden is spinning out, in which he is falling apart. Vulnerable Democrats have the sinking feeling they could face far-reaching losses in November, according to the New York Times. Representative Hillary Scholten, a Democrat who flipped a Republican seat in Western Michigan 2 years ago, said, quote, we're continuing to see polling of a chilling effect on young people, of decreased enthusiasm. That's why it's incumbent on us to make this change now. More and more Democrats are rebelling. According to Axios, Democratic members of Congress are reviving a fight over President Biden's candidacy, following a brief respite in the wake of Saturday's assassination attempt against former President Trump. House Democrats said people are back to being angry at Biden, and a push to sign on to this letter is going around. The Replace Biden movement is back. A letter circulating among congressional Democrats argues there's no legal justification for an early virtual roll call after Ohio moved its filing deadline past the date of the Democratic convention. Jaime Harrison has been lying about this. He says the suggestion the timeline for the virtual roll call has been accelerated is false. Okay, well, then he proceeded to get in a fight with Nate Silver. Okay, Nate Silver was like, you're lying. He says, Jaime, I'm not a pollster. I didn't promise a red wave. The data's here. Actual experts have weighed in and said you're spreading misinformation. You should probably stop lying. You and the White House have run the whole campaign on the premise that you could BS your way through things. It's early enough so as not to be unsalvageable, but you've put Democrats in an incredibly difficult position. Enough with the BS. Jamie Harrison then responded, Nate, in all due respect, I don't care what you think. The bottom line is this. We will meet the August 7th deadline and our nominee will be on the ticket. And Nate Silver responded, there is no August 7th deadline. You're making that up. It's a complete firefight inside the Democratic Party. Adam Schiff is warning of gigantic losses, according to the New York Times. He said, I think if he's our nominee, we lose. We may very well lose the Senate and lose our chance to take back the House as well. Again, he ain't wrong. He ain't wrong. And that is all being exacerbated by the fact that Joe Biden cannot hold himself together for more than 2 sentences. So Joe Biden was asked on national TV, you said that you would be a transitional figure. He literally said this in 2019, that he would be there. And the implication, the heavy implication was he was going to be there for 1 term. So he was on BET News and he was asked about it. And he said, well, yeah, I mean, I basically did say that, but then things got worse. Well, because of you. And you got worse, dude.
Originally ran, you may remember it, I said I was going to be a transitional candidate. And I thought that I'd be able to move from this, just pass it on to someone else. But I didn't anticipate things getting so divided. And quite frankly, I think the only thing age brings is a little bit of wisdom. And I think I've demonstrated that I know how to get things done for the country, in spite of the fact that we were told we couldn't get it done. But there's more to do, and I'm reluctant to walk away from that.
Yesterday, so apparently, again, he was lying. He said he was going to be transitional. He's not. He wants to stay. Also, he has the best possible replacement insurance in Kamala Harris, who everyone hates. And so he spoke at the NAACP yesterday, and he just fell all over himself. All over himself. You know, even the idea he can make through a teleprompter speech at this point is a disaster. So he began by praising the NAAC.
For the race riots in Springfield, Illinois in 1908, the NAAC was formed. That's what started it.
The NAAC was the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. That's what it originally stood for. Again, that term is out of use now, so they just kept the acronym, but it's not the NAAC. Then Biden started rambling because, hey, why not?
We're going to bring rents down, as I said. We're going to build 2 million affordable homes and cap rent increases of 5% a year so corporate landlords can't gouge. Anyway, I don't want to get going. I'm going to get very upset.
Anyway, I won't get going is his get out of jail free card for I don't know where I am in the teleprompter and I don't know what the hell is going on. Anyway, how do you do it anyway on a teleprompter? How's that even possible? I've used a teleprompter. As long as the teleprompter doesn't fritz out, my dude, you have the capacity to actually read it, you would think. Then Joe Biden said he was going to cap raises of rent. Now, his proposal, which is insane enough, is that he was going to cap the raises of rent at 5% and then penalize developers and landlords who don't abide by that rule. Now he says he's going to cap raises of rent at $55 because he can't read words anymore.
The idea that corporate-owned housing is able to raise your rent $300-400 a month or something, under what I'm about to announce, they can't raise it more than $55.
Well, that's weird because that's not the actual proposal. Again, this babbling old man is their best hope. He's their best hope. And it didn't stop for Joe Biden at the NAACP. I mean, it's between the demagoguery and the senility. That's a hell of a combination. So he demagogued on George Floyd. Again, this is somebody who said on Sunday he needs to bring down the temperature. Is this bringing down the temperature? Is this cooling it down, Mr. President?
And you peacefully protested George Floyd's murder. Donald Trump called for the National Guard to go after you. What in the hell's the matter with this man?
When you protested George Floyd's murder, he called on the National Guard to go after you? That's not what happened. The most damaging riots in American history happened. But apparently Joe Biden thinks that Donald Trump just randomly attacks black people. In other news, Joe Biden says that one of his best friends growing up was named Mouse. This is during the period of time when he also had a person he knew named Corn Pop. So it was an interesting time. It was an interesting time in the Newsies gang.
And one of my best friends, when I was a lifeguard in the projects, he was his nickname is Mouse.
There's a good story, dude. Good story. By the way, there is a new polling memo out from the Democratic Party that shows that he is now running behind every alternative Democratic candidate in the battleground states. He made his way back to the microphone, by the way, just to stop by and just say random stuff right there. Apparently, the strongest potential candidates are in order: Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, Maryland Governor Wes Moore, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. None of them are going to be the nominee. None of them. It's going to be this guy. So good luck with that. By the way, that guy also is so desperate that he is now pitching the possibility of announcing major Supreme Court changes. According to the Washington Post, he is finalizing plans to endorse major changes to the Supreme Court in coming weeks, including proposals for legislation to establish term limits for the justices and enforce an enforceable ethics code, according to two people briefed on the plans. He also is calling for a constitutional amendment to eliminate broad immunity for presidents and other constitutional office holders. Okay, all this is crap, and none of it makes any sense. It is a way of trying to lock down the base sufficient so he can get through the next couple of weeks and ensure his nomination. There's a great irony to him calling for term limits on justices so that they're not too old. Yeah, good luck with all that. Again, this guy is in serious trouble. This campaign is in serious trouble, which is why, according to the New York Times, he's been hunkered down with the members of his family. Quote, he's relying on members of his family, a tight-knit clan that includes son Hunter and First Lady Jill Biden, along with a tiny group of loyalists to steer him through a self-created crisis and quell a rising rebellion against his candidacy from within his own party. So if you thought that the headlines were going to move away from Joe Biden and he'd be able to kind of quietly sneak through, not so much, not so much. Alrighty, folks, joining us on the line, my friend Dan Bongino, host of the Dan Bongino Show. Dan is at the RNC, so let me just start with this. Dan, it must be unbelievable to be there. I've never seen a unity conference quite like this one. What are you making of the RNC so far?
Yeah, I mean, Ben, he's. I don't think there's any objective person who would say otherwise. Former President Trump's been on a roll. We had the debate performance, the Jack Smith, Eileen Cannon decision. You had the Biden follow-up dreadful interviews with Lester Holt and others, which just compounded a bad situation. And then you had, an obvious tragedy. I think that's fairly obvious. He was almost killed. But not only does he survive an attempted assassination attempt, Ben, but he gets up and delivers one of the most iconic photos in American political history, telling the crowd to fight, that even liberals had to acknowledge. I think one of them is afraid it's a free campaign ad. And you're seeing that. We've been here since Monday. Monday was a little slow. Tuesday, it was electric when he walked in. But there's a different energy here. It was weird. And, the 2020 virtual kind of RNC mix mash they had, there was almost a depression around the country with COVID and everything. But there's nothing like that here now. I mean, the energy really, I know these things get to be tropes and stuff, but it really is. You can almost feel it. It's palpable.
So, Dan, obviously, your background as a Secret Service agent comes into play in everything that you saw with regard to that assassination attempt. I mean, I've been saying on the air since Saturday that the hand of God is on President Trump. I mean, there's literally no other way to read the fact that he's alive today. And we played a graphic earlier on in the show showing the fact that if Trump does not turn his head at literally the last second, he's dead. I mean, his head is turned to mist in front of a national television audience. But the real question is, how did the Secret Service fail this badly? We've now had the head of the Secret Service acknowledge that they didn't have a person on the roof because it was, quote unquote, too sloped. I've looked at that roof. I'd put my kids on that roof. I mean, that is not Also, right. I wasn't aware that OSHA violations were the chief concern of the Secret Service. Oh my God, somebody might slip and bruise their knee or something. And then we've heard also that there are Secret Service rules in place that suggest that they're not allowed to take a shot at a potential shooter until after the shooter takes a shot, because they wouldn't want to kill some innocent person with a telescope lying down on a roof 150 meters away from the president of the United States. Can you go through sort of the litany of failures here and what exactly happened?
Yeah, let's do them in reverse. So your first point, I saw that making its way around social media. Rules of engagement indicate the shooter has to fire first. Ben, the rules of engagement for counter-sniper uniform division Secret Service officers are absolutely no different than they are for pretty much any law enforcement officer across the country. You're a lawyer. The rules are this. If you can reasonably assume that this person is trying to cause a serious physical injury or death to another, you are allowed to use lethal force to stop said threat, period. That is the generic kind of bird's eye view of just about every rules of engagement law enforcement policy across the country. So I ask it to all these people, I said, really? So you're suggesting a guy on a roof who's not law enforcement with a rifle scoped in with his finger on the trigger is not prepared to cause serious physical injury or death while it's pointed at the president? That's an obscenity so dumb that I'm sure a lawyer like yourself looked at it and was like, okay, this is just stupid. So let's discredit that immediately. On the roof thing, I'll break some news on your show. I kind of touched on it last night. I was doing a podcast, but I'll be a little more thorough with you guys. This is from an unimpeachable source. I have a number of people feeding me information in the Secret Service. And Ben, I'm going to tell you something. I'm not defending or anybody. I'm not anybody's spokesperson. The agents I'm talking to, and there are many, they are overwhelmingly saying the same thing. This is a colossal apocalyptic embarrassment to an agency I was proud of. There is no one defending this thing. But one of them fed to me last night, and if this pans out to be true, and I have no reason to believe it isn't based on who told me this, that was supposed to be a local police department counter-sniper post. There were 2 USSS Secret Service counter-sniper teams. That was supposed to be an additional one. Apparently, for some reason, I don't care to speculate on, it's not what I do, that post never showed up. Now, this is why you had in the beginning that statement, I don't know if you remember it, but it was from a few days ago, where the Secret Service spokesperson appeared to pawn the blame off on the locals. That's what that was about. Now, even if that is the case, which I believe it is based on my sources, say this post did not show up. Now you know what happens when you lie, Ben? Again, being a lawyer, you know how this is with clients. They forget their own lies. So first they tried to blame it on the local PD. And then when they got backlash on that, they said, oh, it was the slope of the roof. And now that they're getting backlash on that, they don't know what to do. They don't want to tell the truth that they just never checked the post, that he showed up, and the post didn't. So now they're burying themselves. So I'm hearing also, this is point number 2. Again, I think this is the first time we're saying it in detail on the show, that there are very strict orders coming from the Biden White House and the DHS to the Secret Service director to basically shut her mouth about this, or she's out. And that's why you've seen Mayorkas so vigorously defend this failed Secret Service director on video, because he basically knows she has all the cookies in the cookie jar, and there's no excuse for that. So that's all your points, Tristan. And one more thing, Ben, I just want to throw in that you didn't ask, but I'll just volunteer. Is the golden rule of Secret Service protection, or any EP, executive protection for that matter, is when a threat presents itself, you get off the X. The X is where that protectee is standing or is in a car. A vehicle gets stopped and they start firing at it with RPGs. You get the hell off the X. Cover and evacuate. That is rule number 1. It's Charlie Brown Encyclopedia EP executive protection. Why was he even on the X in the first place? The guy was using a rangefinder at 5:41 p.m. Trump didn't walk on stage till 6. They have a holding room, Ben, at every site. It's called the holding room for a reason. It's a very sophisticated thing, Ben. Get ready. You know why? Because they hold the president there when something's amiss. Why was he not in the holding room? Why did you let him walk on stage with an open threat? This is, the catastrophic failures in judgment here are legion. And it's hard for me, as a guy who's very proud of this agency and what I did there, to digest this all.
All right, guys, coming up, we'll be getting into more with my friend Dan Bongino. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro. Check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.